Happy Saturday. I hope everyone is having a great Memorial Day weekend. So, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree in recreation management, I felt that I needed to go on and get a master's degree. And I had a lot of interests, and so it was a hard decision. I explored a lot of different degrees that I could get, exploring if I got those degrees, what type of career I could have, and it was a long process, but I get a master's degree in landscape architecture. Now, this was very different from my degree in recreation management, where before I'd spent a lot of time with hands-on learning, actually being in the outdoors, climbing, mountain biking, um, and experiential learning, working with a group and just we're the whole thing with the experiential learning and is team building and building each other up. It was just the shift to go to landscape architecture where it was a much more creative and artistic field than what I had been used to in recreation management. And myself, I didn't have a lot of experience with like art, designing, so I definitely didn't feel like that was a strong area. There was a lot more computer skills to learn, a lot of designing programs, 3D programs, AutoCAD, um, the Adobe Creative Suite, and originally all I'd done with computer was PowerPoint or Microsoft Word, and so it was a big learning curve there for me too, and then just the whole concept of what makes a good design and how to create the design boards and everything. And so it was quite the adjustment, and I didn't do so well at first, and I started to have these thoughts, of I'm just not as good as other people, and I'm not as creative, and I made the wrong choice. Why did I choose to do landscape architecture? I should have chosen something else. And I can't learn all this computer stuff. I'm just slow, and everyone else is more creative than me. But this is such an interesting thing because this was something that was completely new to me. It was out of my comfort zone. So why was I being so hard on myself? Why was I beating myself up when, this was something that I knew was going to be difficult for me? It was something new. So that's what and this is definitely not something that um, I have down 100%. I'm still working on this every day, but I love this topic because I think I've recognized that I need more of it in my life, and I think we all need a little bit more of this in our lives to be less hard on ourselves and have more self-compassion. So first, I want to talk about why are we so hard on ourselves. So the first thing that I realized from my experience and seeing others is that we tend to be hard on ourselves when we value progress and achievements. And this seems kind of contradictory because why, if we value progress and achieving, why would we be hard on ourselves? That doesn't seem to promote, progress and working towards goals. But what I realized is we're hard on ourselves because we're trying to prevent ourselves from being lazy. We think we're helping ourselves by, criticizing ourselves or, self-punishing ourselves. And we think that by doing that, we are helping ourselves to work harder or preventing ourselves from being lazy. And, if we tell ourselves that's okay that we didn't do as well as you had hoped, that we're rationalizing and that we're making excuses. So we feel like we're approving failure or mediocrity or lack of effort, since obviously it's a lack of effort that we're not doing well. But, we know that isn't. So we think that, self-criticism or punishing ourselves will fix that, will keep us from being lazy, or will motivate us to step it up and to be better. But we all know that criticism and negativity are the worst motivators. They don't encourage anyone to be better or to be less lazy. And if you think with me, if your child or a friend had tried out for a sports team or for a play or for a musical group and they didn't make it, I'm sure your response, as my response, would not be to say, you're a failure. What, you didn't work hard enough. What were you thinking? Why did you even try? You obviously aren't meant to do that. Of course not. Our response would not be that. We would acknowledge how much it must have meant to them to be a part of that team or that play or that musical group, and express sympathy that they didn't make it, and then even perhaps offer to help. What can I do to help you so that you can make it next time? And we need to do with ourselves too. Instead of, when we are trying to work hard to accomplish something and to progress, and if we aren't quite seeing that progress that we want, we need to turn to self-compassion and acknowledge, I know how much this means to me, and it's not really working out right now. What can I do to improve my progress, or to help my progress? And we really need to remember that self-criticism and negativity is just as debilitating when we use it on ourselves as when we use it on other people. And I know that may be hard to realize, because we think, oh, well, if I'm just saying it to myself, it's not as effective, and it's just myself, so who am I hurting? Just myself. But you're hurting yourself, and you are the most important person that you need to be kind to and compassionate to. So just first, why are we so hard on ourselves? Well, first, because we value progress. But self-compassion is not rationaling our mistakes or making excuses. But self-compassion is recognizing that we do have weaknesses and imperfections, but that they are part, and that we're not alone. There's a lot of other people that are human out there that have weaknesses and imperfections. So we need to be more kind in ourselves. And self-compassion is also valuing progress and improving ourselves, not because we think we are unacceptable as we are, or thinking that we need to be fixed, but it is because we want to thrive and be happy. Okay, so the next reason why we tend to be hard on ourselves, I realized, is when we are struggling. And don't we all do this? When we're struggling in life, that are thrown at us, and different challenges life can throw at us, they're innumerable. And then even just struggling with our own weaknesses or shortcomings, and when we're going through these challenges, and I probably focus more on the challenges that don't feel like our fault. The challenges just come on us just because of life, and the inner critic begins to tell us, like, other people can do this, and this isn't that hard. Why are you struggling so much? Or what's wrong with you? And we make ourselves feel abnormal, or different from everyone else. And so we start to isolate ourselves by making ourselves feel different, and we start to feel unrelatable. And so by making ourselves feel, abnormal than everyone else, and what's wrong with me? Other people can do this and they're happy, and or other people have made it through this without any problem. Then we start to feel unworthy of understanding, and then that's when we begin to be even more hard on ourselves. Like um, we're the only ones going through this. Why? There must be something wrong with me, or and we start to beat ourselves up. But self-compassion is when we recognize that we are more similar to others than we realize. And once again, that human element, to recognize that we are all human. And to be human means to be imperfect. And to be human means that we will go through challenges. That's a sign of life, right? Challenges. So when we start to recognize that struggles are normal, challenges are normal, there's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with our life. We don't need to beat ourselves up. We don't need to beat our lives up. This is normal. We are human. And self-compassion doesn't mean that we ignore our struggles or the difficulty of it. We don't have to push them away and deny that they exist and pretend like they don't exist, or pretend that nothing is wrong. We need to still validate the struggle, and that's part of self-compassion. To tell ourselves, this is hard, and this is part of life. Other people do go through this, but this is hard, especially for me. This is hard. But I'm a human being, and I'm not perfect, and I'm not alone. And I think that's just an important thing to remember, that self-compassion is being able to relate to ourselves just as much as we would relate to another person. I mean, think of, when you talk to someone and you express kind of the challenges that you're going through and how hard it is, and then they maybe share something, that they've gone through that's similar, how much that makes you feel better. You feel validated. And you feel like, okay, maybe I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one. And, my friend is validating me that, yeah, you are going through something that's difficult. And by validating it, by having your friend validate it and remind you that you're not crazy, and that your life isn't abnormal than anyone else's, that, everyone goes through their crazy times. That doesn't, it still makes you want to be better, still makes you want to improve it. It doesn't make you just sit in self-pity. So that's the power of self-compassion, to be able to relate to ourselves, accept yourself as you are, flaws and all, validate those feelings that you have, but then to be able, once you validate and recognize, like, okay, I accept this, and it's okay to feel this way, and now I'm going to move forward and figure out how to, still find joy and happiness in this challenge, but recognizing, I'm not alone, and things will get better. So the third reason why we tend to beat ourselves up is because we or we're not at the stage in life that we thought we would be at. And I'll explain this a little bit better, because we live in a society that likes to evaluate things. I mean, we have, the evaluation in schools of, below average or above average. Even with babies, we have the percentiles. What percentile is your baby in with height and weight all that. And then lower income, middle class, upper income, upper class. We have the BMI, body mass index. There's so many things that we use to evaluate ourselves. And I'm not saying that any of these evaluations are necessarily wrong. The acknowledgement that we live in a society of evaluation, and so we naturally then start to create criteria to evaluate ourselves. And we, begin to think, okay, I'm by age 18, I need to have graduated high school and be going on to college. And then by age whatever, I need to be married. And then by age this, I'll graduate. And this age, I'll have a job. And then we'll have children. And we set these criteria up for ourselves in our minds of how life should be and when we should accomplish certain things. And when it doesn't happen that way, we start to beat ourselves up and we're hard on ourselves. And this can even happen too, with when we have children, the expectations there, the criteria that we set up of what we feel like our children should be accomplishing, or how they should act, or how family should look, all of those things. We set up criteria for so many things, how we should look, how we should act. And this criteria helpful, especially when we start to use it to evaluate ourselves, and then to criticize ourselves and to beat ourselves up and be hard on ourselves because we haven't met that criteria. And I've experienced this in my own life, just in the process of getting married and dealing with those things like, oh, I'm not married yet, something must be wrong with me, and just being hard on myself for that. And then now, looking at people who are 5 years younger and have children, and I have none still, and it's hard to not think that, am I behind? Did I not figure things out quick enough? Am I slow? Or, what's wrong with me? And I think a big part of self-compassion is letting go of that criteria that we create for ourselves, that we believe that life has to happen in a certain way, and recognizing that there is not one specific blueprint for how life should be. There's not one right path to success. As much as the world may want us to think that there are benchmarks, and that there are things that must be met and completed at certain times, or you're behind, or you're below average, that there isn't. There aren't benchmarks for life. Life is as different as there are people. The path of life, the blueprint of life, there are people here on this earth. And self-compassion, I believe, is embracing the fact that we're not behind, that our children aren't behind, that we don't have the right family dynamics, or the family setup, or that we must have missed a step, or that we're slow, or that we've done something wrong. But self-compassion is recognizing that there are so many unpredictable setbacks that are just part of life, and that it's okay to take our own path in life, and that success looks different for everyone, and we don't have to compare ourselves to others. And self compassion I do is, the recognizing that we want to work hard and we want to reach certain goals in our life because we value learning and growing and progressing, and that we're not just trying to reach these goals to prove something to ourselves and to others, but that we're just embracing life for what it is, and just going at our own pace, and recognizing that it doesn't have to look a certain way. So what the challenge I want to leave you with, because this is something that is kind of a new concept to me too, is just this idea of being more compassionate with ourselves. But I want to leave you with a challenge to write a letter of self-compassion to yourself. And I know it may sound kind of funny, but I read this somewhere as I was looking more into self-compassion, and I loved it. So think of something right now in your life that isn't going the way that you want it to go. Something that you tend to be too hard on yourself about and criticize yourself a lot about. And then think of someone you know that cares a lot about you. Family member, a friend, a mentor. And I want you to think about what they would say to you. And then write a letter to yourself about this topic using that point of view. And try it out. Write this letter, put it away for a week, and then get it out and read it. And I would challenge you to start to think more with these thoughts. How would a dear family member, a dear friend or mentor communicate to you about these areas in your life that you struggle with? Either, just goals that you haven't reached yet, or challenges that you're going through, or progress that you want to make. How would a friend or family member talk to you? And that's what you want to start to develop within yourself. Negativity and criticism will never motivate us, will never help us to be better and find the joy and happiness that we're after. We need to just be kinder to ourselves and realize that there isn't one path to success that we have to fit. There isn't one way to be a good parent. There isn't one way to have an awesome family. There isn't one way to be a good friend. There are so many different ways, and we need to just embrace the fact that to be human is to be imperfect, and we can all relate and be supportive of each other, and most importantly, we need to relate and accept ourselves and be supportive and kind to ourselves. So I hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend, and remember always to live intentionally. We'll see you later.